Okay, so we have a MacBook Pro. It's a 2015 model, and the customer's brought it in because it's not turning on. Sometimes it doesn't turn on, and sometimes when it does turn on, you'll get to the login screen and then it shuts down randomly. I've tried this myself and it's exactly the same result for me, so I thought I'd pull the board out and try to find what the problem is. Upon closer inspection, I have found an issue with this, so I'll just get straight to it. And it's this part of the circuit here. This is the only damage that I've found on the logic board itself. That stands out like a sore thumb. So that is corrosion, and it's probably from that's got to be from some liquid or an exploded capacitor. So I'll find out what that is. Okay. Okay, so it's around U1900, and it's these two here. So this here is U1900. And it's this one here that seems to be the issue. I probably will just take the both of them off. But you can see here there's some crud on this. And that'll definitely stop it from turning on. So C1920, where are we? C1920 is for your camera. So C1920 is for your camera, and the other side goes to ground. C1902 is PP3V3_S5. So it's a 3.3 volt rail, and it's attached to the S5 circuit. And what that controls is actually a lot of different things. So just as an example, we've got PP3V3_S5, and that's attached to 3v3 sus_enable_L. Also the other side of a C8021 is the same. Yep, so these are 3v3 sus rails, which are very important. Okay, so we've got another chip which is controlled by PP3v3 sus, and that is your all_sys_power good. So that's a all systems power good. When this PP3V3_S5 is given voltage, it turns on U1845, which gives a all system power good signal to the computer. So this is this is critical in order for the computer to work, and it's no wonder why this customer was having problems with it. So we'll have a look at a couple of more rails. So there's some on this side as well. But basically anything that's connected to the PP3V3_sus is going to have some critical components connected to it. So here we go, here's another one. So PP3V3 also connects you to your SSD enable signal. SSD, this will be SSD as well, and should be all the same. So 1.5 volts, 1.5 volt, that's your PM_1.5 volt power good _L. So also your system clock. So this signal also, yeah, so without this your computer's not going to work at all, and there's a lot of videos that explain the PP3V3_sus, and it's not only in your MacBook Pros, but it's also in all of your MacBook Airs. So it is a very critical signal to be having. What else have we got here? So JTAG, so that's your CPU. So you kind of get the point. So that one here is, okay, so that's the actual chip itself, Q8020. Let's enable. Yeah. So that's PP3V3_sus. So it's PP3V3_sus, enter, and that's the SMC. So I'm just showing you how important this rail is. This is your power enable, a lot of power enable signals there. PCH. So this should be all CPU stuff. USB, yeah, so nothing's going to work without your 3.3 volt sus rail. So here's your SPI ROM. So all these voltages are enable voltages, which allows your the chips to turn on. So your 1.5 volt sus_LDO, JTAGs. Yeah, I don't know what all this stuff means, but what I do know is that without this, none of this stuff is going to work at all. Okay, so I'll just start taking this off. I may just take a quick reading. And that is a, what is that? Well, I do have another board here to test it, so I'm going to put this into diode mode. Excuse me. And then we will test the capacitor. So that's OL. Okay, so in diode mode it is OL on one side. And it just completely came off, so I think we've found our issue. I will test this one though, eventually, but I really think that it's just that one. So time for some heat. I can see that the trace is burnt there as well, so it's possible that a new trace needs to be installed. Excuse me. So there was nothing there. Okay, so there does appear to be a trace there. And some flux. And flux is going to help the solder flow. You just want to try to clean this bottom trace up if there is anything there. And I have a feeling that it's broken off. So that top trace is fine. Well, if I install this and it works properly but the camera doesn't work, what I do know is that this capacitor right next to this one here has something to do with the camera. So to the right of where this trace is missing, it's connected to the trace on the board. So I will scratch a bit of that off and then try to recreate the trace. So I just want to scratch away lightly. To reveal some of the trace, and it'll be an anchor point for me to connect. So right there I will connect a wire, and then that wire will bridge between here and where this trace here is missing, and then the capacitor that was there before can be reconnected. So just put a little bit of solder on there just to tin it. Okay, then I will place the new capacitor on here. I could run it directly from here to here. That would look a bit ugly. It would still work, but that's actually probably the best thing to do if it fits, but I don't think it will. Okay. So that whole chip may need to be replaced, but I don't think so. I don't think so. I'll have a look at this first and see if I have some luck. But it didn't look corroded from the first glance. Okay, so there's a trace missing from here to there, so there's no physical connection between this point here and this point here. So we'll bridge a wire between the two, and a wire is much better than just putting a big hunk of blob on there. It's much cleaner and more professional as well. So a little bit of flux. Solder ready. And then wire is going to go from A to B. So I'm just scratching the coating, the formal coating that's on top of this wire, and just basically tinning the wire. Okay, so that's connected to that side of the trace, and now it's time to connect it to this capacitor. Same thing, just want to tin it. I probably should have tinned it all in the same go. That's right. There we go. So that's tinned. And then to connect it, just a little bit of solder. And bear in mind that this is also only connected by one point on the board, which is this top side. Add a bit more flux to that point and try to flow just a tiny bit more. It's a little bit too much, but it's on there. Can clean that up. So the very next thing is to snap that wire and just fold it backwards and forth, and it'll snap itself off. And then just give that blob a bit of a clean. I just made a mess of that. That wire's just come off, but I think it's attached itself like a big blob, which is what I didn't want to do, but it'll still work. So I think that that capacitor, well, it should be solid now. Shouldn't be any movement in it whatsoever, and that's good. Okay, I need some isopropyl alcohol. I can clean that up later. But that repair is done now, and I'll try this out and see if it works. So my GoPro's crapped itself, and I've sent an email through to Blackmagic, to GoPro themselves, and they've said that they will replace it for me, which is good because I do need to have all my cameras working. So my only concern now is to see if this actually starts up. And when I say start up, I mean boot into the customer's configuration. So I'm just plugging in the DCN connector. You can't see this because my GoPro is not working. So you'll just have to trust that this is the same board. And I'm hoping it works, because then that's a job done for the day. And I know what I'd rather be doing on a Sunday, and that's having a nanny nap. Plugging in the left side I/O board. The camera, because I'd like to test that. The Wi-Fi will come up as missing because I'm not plugging the Wi-Fi in yet. I know the Wi-Fi works. Time to cut my nails. Okay, now the LCD. And I know the LCD is fine as well because I've tested it. Speaker. Keyboard. Be very careful when plugging in the keyboard connector on any MacBook, because they like to bend and break. Okay, I think this is the touchpad. The battery. Battery will get plugged in last. Here's a speaker. It's a speaker connector I've just plugged in. And I think that will do it for now, in a hard drive. So I'm just interested in it booting into the OS. It never done that. It should chime. So there's the chime, there's the logo. Oh, and it's gone straight to the customer's login. So I'm going to put the customer's login password. Enter. So when I press enter, usually it didn't do nothing, and it would actually turn itself off. So I'll press enter now. And it's actually turned on, which is good. So I'm actually logged into my customer's computer now, and it wasn't doing this before. So that's a wrap for this job here, and it's just very important that when you are looking at any MacBook jobs like this, or anything that's logicboard related, that that you open up the computer and have a good look at the logicboard, because there is a chance that the customer will say that it hasn't had any liquid damage whatsoever, but in this case here I can see that there has been some sort of corrosion on the logicboard itself, and it was in the PP3v3_sus rail, which is a critical rail for turning on basically all of your major chips. So with your processors and your chips and your ICs, they all require an input voltage to turn on the actual chip. It's like having a circuit, and your circuit is a light, and in order for that light to turn on, you have to actually have voltage at the switch, and that PP3v3_sus voltage is the on-off voltage for that for all of those chips. So it doesn't matter if it's for your SMC, it'll have a PP3v3_sus rail which turns it on. Also your wireless LAN or your Wi-Fi, your network, all of that stuff can be controlled by a 3.3 volt rail. Another example is your normal computer, your PC power supply, that big bulky thing. It has many different rails. So you'll have a 1 volt rail, you'll have a 1.5 volt rail, and that could be for powering your CPU. You could have a 5 volt rail that could be for your for powering up things like your Wi-Fi and stuff like that. You could also have 12 volt rails. On a computer, they are responsible for providing power to your hard drives, because your hard drives on a normal computer are bigger and they require a bigger voltage, so that takes 12 volts. But in order for that 12 volts to turn on, it needs a lower voltage to turn on that voltage. So it's the 3.3 volts goes to the 12 volt rail, or to the chip that turns on the 12 volts, and then it turns it on with the 3.3 volts, and then you get the 12 volts. And it should be the same with all your other chips as well. So even your 1.5 volt rail, which could be for your RAM or for your CPU, they all require an input voltage of 3.3 volts or 3.42 volts, one or the other. So that was a good job, and I learned something. I hope you learned something. Thank you for watching my videos, and I hope you have a great day. Thank you.